Now let's go back to 1999, which happened to be a lockout season. That season wouldn't even begin until
Jay Williams had the sauce. Yeah, bro. Tell you, that sauce with him.
which happened to be a lockout season. That season wouldn't even begin until February. But the NBA did manage to squeeze in 50 regular season games for the fans before the playoffs started. The late start to the season caused many players to come in extremely out of shape, but the San Antonio Spurs did not allow the late start to affect their ultimate goal. This is where the asterisk comes into play. For the people who does slap an asterisk next to their title, the only argument they seem to bring to the table is the fact that the Rockets were never forced to face Jordan, which you can say is really the only argument they need. He would publicly admit that the officials who refereed Game 6 of the 2002 Western Conference Finals between the Lakers and Kings manipulated the game by calling exaggerated fouls in order to give LA more opportunities at the free throw line. And
that wasn't a foul right there.
Most of the fouls that the Lakers committed on the Kings. Also, they did not hesitate to eject multiple Sacramento players from the game, even if it wasn't deserved.
Okay. Y'all see the title, man. Let's get to it. Oh,
when you achieve any specific goal in the NBA, whether it's winning a championship, winning an individual award, or even winning a playoff series, it's a big deal. You accomplished something special. You earned it. But in some cases, not all of them are created equal, and sometimes are even questioned about its legitimacy. We all witnessed the Toronto Raptors dethrone the Golden State Warriors in the 2019 NBA Finals, and many people congratulated them for what they did. But some people did not hesitate to put an asterisk next to their title due to the injuries of Kevin Durant and Klay Thompson. To this day, it never fails to get brought up.
Somebody talks about Kawhi, we got to bring up the fact that there was no KD and Klay Thompson got hurt, and he wouldn't be the champion if those two dudes, or at least as far as I'm concerned, even if just Klay was healthy, even without Kevin Durant, I believe the Golden State Warriors would have beaten the Toronto Raptors.
I just wish Golden State could have been healthy. KD's not hurt and Klay's not hurt. Then we could have seen just how great Kawhi is, because what would have happened.
Definitely.
Which got me thinking, what are some other accomplishments where a handful of critics stamped an asterisk on them because of the feeling it wasn't truly earned? Whether it was injuries, suspensions, or even lockout seasons, either way, something played a part in making the path easier for them. So today, I'm gonna list some of the biggest asterisks in NBA history. Enjoy the video. Let's begin in the year of 2012. Heading into that postseason, the Chicago Bulls possessed the best record in the NBA, grabbing the #1 seed. And in the first round, they would face the Philadelphia 76ers, who claimed the 8th seed. Fast forward to the very end of Game 1, the Bulls were on their way to victory, but for some reason, Derrick Rose was still in the game, which was very puzzling considering Chicago was up by 12 points with only about a little over a minute left. I know a 12-point lead can disappear very quickly in today's NBA, but it's not like the 2012 Sixers or the dangerous sharpshooting Warriors or anything like that. So there was nothing to worry about, and they would find out that the decision to let D Rose finish off the game was a huge mistake, as he would go down and suffer a season-ending injury.
You bypass the harder team in Miami.
Rose came down bad on his left foot. See him?
Cause it's still in the game. If he was out the game, that would have happened. Sheesh.
Holding on to his knee and down.
Obviously, the Bulls would close out that game, but without their star player, even the 8th seed would prove to be too much for them, and the series ended in 6 games. Okay, so this one always bothered me for some reason, because I remember watching everyone celebrate, making this big deal about the number 8 seed defeating the number 1 seed, and really trying to sell the narrative that something special just happened. But come on, you know damn well the Sixers would not have been able to beat Chicago if they had a healthy Derrick Rose. That unfortunate injury quite possibly changed the entire outcome of the Eastern Conference, and us fans were robbed from a potential Bulls-Heat rematch in the conference finals. Now let's go back to 1999, which happened to be a lockout season. That season wouldn't even begin until
Williams had the sauce. Yeah, bro. Yeah, that sauce with
which happened to be a lockout season. That season wouldn't even begin until February. But the NBA did manage to squeeze in 50 regular season games for the fans before the playoffs started. The late start to the season caused many players to come in extremely out of shape, but the San Antonio Spurs did not allow the late start to affect their ultimate goal of going after Spurs did not to come in extremely out of shape, but the San Antonio Spurs did not allow the late start to affect their ultimate goal of going after their first ever championship. A second-year Tim Duncan and a very title-hungry David Robinson cruised their way to the NBA Finals, where they ultimately defeated the New York Knicks. But some people were not all that impressed. With the very late start to the season, many believed that the NBA should have just postponed everything and should have just waited to start a brand new season next year. Even Hall of Fame coach Phil Jackson came out and said that the Spurs should have an asterisk next to their title. But I know at the end of the day, everyone did have an equal fair shot at winning the championship. It's just that the Spurs were the team to capitalize on their opportunity. In the start of the 1993-94 NBA season, Scottie Pippen and the Chicago Bulls would have to move on without Michael Jordan, who selected to play minor league baseball instead. But right out of the gate, it was clear that Pippen was more than capable of being the #1 option on the team. He led the Bulls to a very impressive 55 wins that season, and was certainly up for the challenge to make a deep playoff run. Pippen and the Bulls had no problem sweeping the Cavaliers in the first round. But the next round was as far as they would go. Chicago was eliminated in a very competitive 7-game series by the New York Knicks, who eventually advanced to the NBA Finals. And on the other side, the Houston Rockets were making some noise of their own and would face the Knicks in the finals. And after a hard-fought 7-game series, Houston would win their first ever championship. Now, in many people's opinion, this is where the
good pass, Hakeem. I thought Hakeem was going to take a very contested shot.
First ever championship. Now, in many people's opinion, this is where the asterisk comes into play. For the people who does slap an asterisk next to their title, the only argument they seem to bring to the table is the fact that the Rockets were never forced to face Jordan, which you can say is really the only argument they need. See, at that time, MJ was on a roll. He just came off of a three-peat and 3 Finals MVPs in his prime, so it's easy to imagine the Bulls probably would have won the 1994 NBA championship if they had the best player on the planet at their disposal.
Join large-scale battles with military vehicles. The online action game War Thunder has received a major
2007, the Phoenix Suns were taking on the San Antonio Spurs in the semifinals. Heading into Game 4, the Suns were looking to even up the series at 2 games apiece, and in the final moments of the game, it looked like they were well on their way. But Robert Horry wouldn't let the night end without putting his fingerprints on the game in some way. Steve Nash was trying to push the ball to half court when suddenly Horry shoves him into the scorer's table. Which into the scores
hit his head on the jaw.
Which led
but nah, why look like Steve fake overdid it though? Because he fell.
Shoves him into the scores.
Like, why you laid out like that?
Which led to a minor scuffle between the two teams. Ultimately, the Suns did win the game to even up the series, but the celebration...
Tim Duncan fake look like fucking Will Smith.
The Suns did win the game to even up the series, But the celebration wouldn't last long, because soon after, the NBA announced that Amari Stoudemire, along with Boris Dio, would be suspended in Game 5 for leaving the bench after the flagrant foul occurred, which was very bad news for Phoenix, because the only two guys who even had the ability to guard Tim Duncan was Amari Stoudemire and Boris Dio. And to no surprise, the Spurs overpowered the Suns in Game 5 and eventually defeated Phoenix in 6 games. Okay, so I know this one kinda sounds like a nitpick here, but you have to admit that those suspensions did help swing the momentum in this series, and definitely gave San Antonio a much easier path to the championship. In 2002, the LA Lakers were focused and determined to complete a three-peat. Fast forward to the Western Conference Finals, the only thing standing in their way to advance to the NBA Finals were the Sacramento Kings. In fact, the Kings were the #1 seed, so they knew this was going to be a bloodbath. In Game 6, Sacramento was looking to close out the series. They were in control with a 3-2 lead heading into the contest, but the Lakers wouldn't go down without a fight. Their goal was to force a Game 7, and that's exactly what they did, ultimately defeating the Kings in Game 7 as well, advancing to the NBA Finals, where they eventually swept the New Jersey Nets, solidifying themselves as an all-time great dynasty. However, just 6 years later, in the summer of 2008, people would begin to look at that Sacramento series much differently. A year after, former referee Tim Donaghy was found guilty in 2007 for betting on games that he officiated and made up calls to affect the outcome of those games to go in his favor, he would publicly admit that the officials who refereed Game 6 of the 2002 Western Conference Finals between the Lakers and Kings manipulated the game by calling exaggerated fouls in order to give LA more opportunities at the free throw line. And
that wasn't a foul right there.
Most of the fouls that the Lakers committed on the Kings. Also, they did not hesitate to eject multiple Sacramento players from the game, even if it wasn't deserved. Okay, you may be thinking that this one shouldn't really have the biggest asterisks in the world because the Lakers might have actually had the better team to begin with, but whether you believe Tim Donaghy is telling the truth or not, those claims definitely raise some suspicions on whether the Lakers were assisted on their way to a three-peat. Alright, there is a
That's the end of this one, y'all.
few more I want to mention, but in order to avoid making this video too long, defeated the Lakers in 1989, but Magic Johnson and Byron Scott were injured for the whole series. Kendrick Perkins sat out with an injury in Game 7 of the 2010 NBA Finals. 2015 NBA Finals, Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love were not able to play, leaving LeBron James to fend for himself. 2016 NBA Finals, Draymond Green was suspended for Game 5, which sparked the Cavaliers' 3-1 comeback. Kevin Durant joining the Warriors, which made Walt Frazier publicly come out and say that his championships should have an asterisk. Zaza Pachulia purposely injuring Kawhi Leonard, which possibly changed the entire series. Kyrie Irving was not able to go in the 2018 Eastern Conference Finals, which was a huge break for LeBron. And finally, with KD and Klay Thompson suffering crucial injuries, it left the door wide open for the Toronto Raptors to win the 2019 NBA championship. So there you have it, guys. Those are just...
Yeah, man, there's a whole lot of, I guess, asterisks you could say in NBA history, but I feel like a lot of the times it's part of the game, bro. It's a part of the game. Besides the refs tampering with the calls and all that, manipulating the game, all the injuries, the suspensions, it's part of the game, you know? It's part of the game, man. If y'all enjoy, let me know how y'all feel in the comments. Turn on post notifications, click on the last reaction over here. Share the video with your peoples on your social media platforms. I'm out of here, man.